All right, so we've only got one of our playwrights, so we need 3 players here. But let's welcome the playwrights and the directors. Okay, so we're going to work through our process again, and you remember how we begin. So we're thinking about My Father's Treasure, and the first thing we want to ask you is, what did you find meaningful or memorable in that play? Were there particular moments or lines, or yes, starting at the beginning?
It was memorable that the father thought that his daughter was his greatest treasure. Son, sorry. Yeah, I like that.
You liked it? Okay, wonderful, yeah. So a really strong parable in a way, wasn't it? Yes, was that okay? And for you? The same. Goodness, okay, so we know that really strikes a very strong chord then for people, yes.
When the mother told the son that he is actually the greatest treasure and that's the reason why he can never actually find it in reality.
Mm. And what did that meaning, I mean, what did that moment mean for you?
Probably how most parents see their children, so you can so the audience can almost connect with that feeling of being treasured by someone.
Okay, nice. Yeah, very good. Anything else that was meaningful or memorable for you in that piece? Yeah.
What I was struck by was the courage of the 4 performers who came on and did their performance without the support that a lot of other groups have had with no adults help when they started, and that they were really super brave and stood out there and did it.
Absolutely, yes. Let's give them a round of applause. Ethan.
Oh, the cowgirl that was standing at the back.
That is Uncle Lance.
The what?
That is the uncle.
The uncle.
He doesn't have lines.
He doesn't have lines, but he was there, right, in the hat. Yeah, it was a very strong image, that hat, wasn't it? Anything else? Okay, so what questions do you have of the audience? What would you like to know whether they got or...
It sounds like they got the gist of it.
Okay. I have a question for you, for the audience. What age do you think that this piece is intended for? Does it, yeah?
16, 17, around about there.
Okay, so, and why do you think that? Yeah? I mean, there's obviously something in your instinct that's saying to you that's what it is, you know. So I'm just wondering if you can go a little deeper and work out why it is. Is it about the age of the son, maybe? Or is it about, like, the questions that one's asking oneself at that age? What do you...
It's the question that the son asked the mother, like, questions that only like a 16-year-old up or was like from 16 upwards.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to add to that? Yeah?
I think it's for like senior primary school.
Okay.
Because it was, I think we all saw it was coming, but for younger people it would have been like shocked, like, oh, he's the treasure.
Okay, right. So for you that's interesting. So you think that it's aimed at a younger audience because maybe the parable is a little bit obvious, whereas what you're saying, and sorry, I've forgotten your name. What is your name? The staff who's suggested Tammy. Sorry, Tammy. Tammy, yeah, I mean, I think what Tammy's saying is that there's that sense of when you're 16, 17 that you are looking at, you know, what is my future going to mean? How am I going to survive in this world? And you're kind of looking for the things from your parents that you hope are going to, you know, in some way support you. And so that concern about the future perhaps is what is driving your suggestion of age. Yeah, do we have a different opinion?
I would say it's for younger children, like in primary school, because normally when you're young, you thought like you look left and right and you cross the road.
Oh no, this is the first one. Yeah, My Father's Treasure. No problem. Yeah.
I think it's for older people because like only older people talk to their parents like that.
Okay.
I think it's for like 16, 17, 18 because for an example of like a male, that's when you start, like when there was a line where she said something about being a man, and I think that's when like you start wanting to take responsibility for your family. And so I think that's the target market because that's when like people are trying to find themselves as being young adults in society.
Okay, so I've got another question coming out of this question. If we think that it's for 16, 17-year-olds, but if we also maybe agree with you that perhaps the parable is a little obvious, that maybe people could anticipate what the meaning is, do you have any suggestions for the playwright as to how she could make it maybe less obvious or more complicated, or do you know what I mean? So that a 16, 17-year-old audience would appreciate it even more. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that she would be able to do something in the writing to maybe make it even more?
Answer that.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think it's a beautiful story, and I think it's one of those stories that could actually be for a slightly younger audience. I'm talking about, I mean, it is actually meant for, I think, is it 9 to 12 or something like that? But I also think that in the interpretation, it can be altered slightly depending on how you would interpret it to engage a slightly older adolescent.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'll be an interesting conversation for us to have with Sophia. I mean, obviously we can't have it right this moment, but that's why I'm trying to ask you more questions, because we're going to be giving her feedback from the session, and you know, she obviously wants to take the play forward, so it'd be nice to explore that with her. Okay, any other questions you'd like to ask the audience about what they got or didn't get, or?
No, but I'd like to tell them something.
Yeah.
Because I arrived late, the treasure was actually in this. But of course I couldn't hand it over to Habiba because I got here just as she was doing that.
So that moment was actually, here's the treasure, look at yourself.
She would fetch it, unwrap it, and hold it up to him.
Oh, wonderful. That's a very powerful moment, isn't it? Yeah, that would have made a very sort of theatrical moment of that. Very nice. Okay, so you guys now have an opportunity to ask some questions of Khadija. What questions would you like to ask about this play? Yeah.
What inspired her to write this play?
She's my parent.
Yeah, do you know, and do you have any sense of what inspired Sophia?
No, I don't. We haven't really spoken about that. I was more concerned about the script and the translations of the French and the other language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things, guys, that you should know about Sophia is that she comes from Cameroon, where, you know, French is almost stronger as a language than English. And so there was quite a lot of mixed language in it, wasn't it?
Also, the play is set in a village in Cameroon. And so I think it parallels a lot with young men here going for initiation. And I think that this young man had actually gone. And that he was becoming a man before his father even died. And once his father died, he had to step up. Yeah.
And for me, what was interesting in the text is that you really got a sense of that culture coming through in the language, didn't you? It certainly didn't feel like a South African culture in the way the language was being used. It was very rich and quite poetic,
It's almost Shakespearean in a sense, I found.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yeah?
Why did the father make it seem like the treasure was something more valuable, like money or gold or something?
Do you think that he actually did that? I think that he merely said, take care of my treasure. And I think what we tend to do in the world is we make assumptions about what treasure is. And treasure is always something out there that you need to go and find, as opposed to something in here that you need to go and find. Yeah?
Does the uncle actually say something like later on in the play?
I beg your pardon?
Does the uncle say something later in the play?
He actually never says anything, and I need to apologize to Demi because we never actually got to blocking part of the play. where she's just a sinister being in the background, because throughout the play he's mentioned a lot. Actually, he's mentioned a little less in the second part, which we did, but he's mentioned a lot, so he's a very prominent character even though he doesn't speak.
And what do you think his function is in the play? Why is he there?
Well, one of the functions, I guess, is to create deception, and he is this world. He emulates the material world. That's what he is. So his function is about material gain, very capitalistic, quite sinister. That's actually what I think of capitalism. Sinister, underhanded, and devaluing human beings. So his function is to pit people against each other, which is kind of what capitalism does, because it creates an imbalance in many ways. And yeah.
Okay, great. So then some opinions. Yeah?
I'd like to offer an opinion about the manhood idea.
The manhood idea? You'd like to offer an opinion about that? Are you happy to hear it? Yes? Yeah?
Just to people that say he's probably 16 or 17, sometimes your situations change, so that when you're younger you have to assume more responsibility, because like his father died, so he just had to automatically assume the role of the man in the house. So he didn't necessarily have to be old, he could have been young.
Yeah. Okay, good point, Nikki. Yeah, thank you. Yes?
I'd like to offer an opinion on the uncle. Yeah, we should give him more light, because it's very pointless him just standing in the background for no reason.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to block that part.
Yeah. But it's interesting to think about what could happen with that character. I mean, if he is,
with that character.
If as Khadija is saying, he's really representing something very important in the play, then how could that become theatrically interesting? Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. Yeah.
Most of the time, the two characters are like facing us, and it was like difficult to see what they're doing and
So just a point about the staging, that sometimes, and it's obviously difficult, people are reading in scripts, it's immediately cutting you off. But yes, thank you for that. Yeah?
I could feel the uncle's character, because I thought him standing there, he would probably be someone who knows about the treasure. And I would see him as someone that has something to do with it. He probably is planning something bad or maybe something good. So his character was not like, oh, he's quiet, but is he going to say something? I felt like maybe he was supposed to do something or just stand there, but like we were supposed to relate with the way the conversation between the father and the mother. So that's what I said.
So Femina, also what you're saying there is that he's kind of creating an expectation through his being there. Like we keep on wondering
what is.
Yeah. So how, maybe to relay back to Sophia, how could she use that, perhaps?
The way he was just standing there.
I really think that Sophia used it well in the script. I think the responsibility to use Uncle Atango was mine.
Right.
So, and I'm well aware of the fact that he didn't play his role as he should have. But as I said, once again, we didn't get to block that.
With 6 hours of rehearsal, one can't do everything here. Yes, yeah. What's your opinion about?
Well, it was like nice. The ending, it was beautiful. But it made me feel like we are like, us as a human being, we are very important. Like, we are like treasures. We're not like any people. We are like very important.
That's very lovely. So, I mean, so then the message of the play really sat with you then,
I think Sophia would be very pleased to hear that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well done to everybody in My Father's Treasure. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, and then you've got the rules of the road. So, the rules of the road. What was memorable or meaningful for you in that one? Yes?
Look left. Look right.
You got it. Okay.
When Shonde was trying to save the friend and she realized that actually the friend is actually behind her.
Right. Okay.
Why did they tend to say something? She wasn't supposed to be behind me. I was supposed to be far away from her, but the stage is too small, so that's how it's supposed to be.
Okay. Yes.
Use your dancing feet
to cross the road. I love that. Yeah, that was a nice moment. Okay,
Oh, when she was laughing at the end. The way she was laughing.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
I think what was memorable was the audience interaction, because this is a children's play, so the fact that the characters, the actors actually interacted with the audience was memorable.
It's interesting, isn't it? Can I just jump in there for a second, because I think it's the first piece that we've seen that's had interaction. Am I right? Yes. I think it is. No? Who? Sorry?
Waiting for Nelson yesterday. He also spoke to the audience.
Oh yes, it wasn't Waiting for Nelson, yeah, but there wasn't quite the same. It wasn't sort of inviting them to speak back so much, was it? It was more just speaking to the audience. And there's so many different kinds of interaction that one can have with an audience. It doesn't need to be necessarily, let's sing along or answer this question. There's so many different kinds of interaction. Even something like, we had the one play where, it was Tefo, of course, where the end of Tefo's play was for him to go sit in the audience. Remember that? That's a form of audience interaction, right? So just to expand on this idea a little bit, what do you think that audience interaction does? Why do you think it's important? You brought it up.
It sort of wakes the audience up because they become more aware. At that point, I could notice even people that weren't concentrating quickly jumped off, and then they were there clapping, snapping, and singing along. So that was beautiful.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it really engages them. Yeah.
So the way Sid treated the whole situation of rules of the road, he's like, okay, it's just some rules I need to listen to. I don't know, do I have to? Don't I have to? Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah. Did you find that quite...
It was amusing in a way.
Okay, right, great. Yeah?
I found it meaningful that it actually showed the real scary consequences of not looking left and right to get bumped over. Because sometimes people are too scared to tell children what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So in a way, you're sort of giving them this, you're giving them all these instructions, but not really explaining why they're so important. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, actually. It's funny because I really find that I like children's theatre so much, and I love the sing-along, like that involvement of, and then the grandmother doing the whole rappy number. But it's kind of like all those kinds of things was really great fun. Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Also the fact that the writer brought out how us as youths or younger people don't want to listen to older people. Like we don't want to hold older people's hands because we think we're too cool, and our friends would think we're not if we actually hold them, but then we don't realize that it's important and life-saving.
Right, yeah. Good, yeah?
I like that we used, as characters, we used our bodies as props in the play.
Okay, yes?
I liked quite a few things, and I just like, although it's pretty much a didactic play, I like how they took such a theme and put it in a situation that when someone looks at it, you forget that it's somewhat educational, but you see someone your age going through these lessons, and in a very inviting way. And also find the breaking the fourth also inviting to a younger audience. I suppose it is written for a younger audience, and I feel like it's a serving play in the way that it is staged as well. So I found it so invigorating.
Okay, great, thank you, yeah.
I like the way that the audience gave attention to the characters and stuff like that. But I also like the fact that they took part in it, that it wasn't boring. And if they had to show the smaller children, they would have got all excited.
Yeah, great. Yes, Jacqueline, did you have a...
My most memorable moment was when the car was driving along the car. The car was driving along the arm, and we went into miniature. And I loved that the learners were using something that they had done in Nadia's workshop and something that they had seen in one of the plays that they've done. And I really love to see that circle of all of those things being learnt about in a workshop, seen in a performance, and then put into practice. That was very memorable for me.
so that was meaningful and memorable. Now let's think about questions. So what questions do the two of you have for your audience? Anissa?
Nothing.
Nothing? No questions, I don't believe it. Yes,
it's the same question that you had about the age group. What age group do you guys think that would be performed for and why?
Okay, yeah, Finna?
10 and down.
Sorry? 10 and down. Okay, yeah?
I don't really agree with it because like nowadays even older people get knocked over, it's not just small children. And
Can I just ask you a question? If you were an older person watching it, would you listen to the message, or would you think that that the way it's being said to you is too young for you? So you would maybe
it's
just...
not always too young, because like nowadays people they just cross, they don't care, it's childish stuff, they just cross the road.
Yeah, the question is more about the way the story is being told. You know, if we were going to tell that story or that idea for adults, maybe we'd need to be looking at some other issues. Maybe it's not so much about people playing on the road or not looking where they're going or not knowing the rules of the road. It's more about maybe somebody drinking too much and walking on the road, or you know, just being careless, being too occupied with their phone, or do you know what I mean? So the context might be different, which then might change the way you would write the story if you were dealing with a different audience. So, yeah.
I actually agree with Femina, like 10 and down, because nowadays people send their children to school alone, like from 7 and up, so they walk alone, and like, and their children are still teachable, like they will, like you can still tell them, look left and right, and so I actually agree with Femina, like 10 down.
So if maybe that's one of the ways of working out what the age should be, is when my children have to walk alone, at what age would they might have to walk alone, you know? And sometimes, unfortunately, in this country, it's not even primary school. It's sometimes even before that. Sometimes children are walking alone to preschool. I mean, they shouldn't be, in my view, but you know, there are many children in this country that do. So you know, maybe it's, I don't know, would that maybe say to you what age it could work for? Yeah.
I'd say from 8 years old and down.
8 and down. Okay, so yes, looking at that age where people are beginning to, yeah?
I said 14 and down because we all liked it. That's why we said yes and left and yes. I think from 14 because you know how children are, and us teenagers because we just run and we like the youngster look. That's why we can learn.
I just wanted to ask, do you think it's an easy way of kids to learn? Is it an... Okay. All right.
No, I'm kidding.
And Pastor, do you ever say anything serious?
I'm trying to answer her question about if it's something. I think it definitely beats the classic classroom way of being taught on the rules of the road. I think, however, I don't know if we've got to that stage, but in answering her, if she pushes more on the situational aspect of the play as well, getting the kids through an experience of watching someone encounter the aspect of crossing the road and perhaps getting into accidents and what happens, you know, getting them to also see the real aspect of it, instead of more on the jingles and then I think it could even be more powerful.
Okay, so we're kind of going into opinion there already, but it's okay. It's all right. But let's not forget about where we are. Are there any other questions that you'd like to ask the audience? You're okay? Yeah, we're okay. Okay, so what about questions for them now, before opinions? So what questions do you have? Yeah?
What inspired you guys to make this play?
Basically, in our community, not to just stereotype or generalize, but for in the location where I come from in PE, most kids are having to take upon the parents' roles. We have 9-year-olds walking their younger siblings to school, to creche or whatever, and it's scary. You know, basically they're not aware of how to cross the road, and you have to, sometimes even when I'm going to take the taxi, I have to help them cross, you know, and yeah, it's very daunting. myself as well, I think I started using public transport when I was about 6 years old. Yeah. And I used to stand, there was a lady that used to cross the road and come fetch me, and we'll cross together and actually go to school. So.
I mean, just coming out of that, if you don't mind, I've got a question for you, which is, you know, you focus very much on the looking left, right, left. I mean, and that seems to be the biggest message, is this thing of awareness in the play. But what my experience is, and certainly when I'm as a driver, when I'm seeing children on the road and, you know, people trying to cross the road, that's not the only issue at all. And very often it's awareness of where people are walking along the side of the road, you know, and whether you are facing the oncoming traffic or not, whether you can see what's coming at you, or whether, you know. So I'm just wondering whether there aren't maybe one or two other areas of road safety that could be explored in the play that we're not seeing. I don't know.
There are, as the script goes, yeah, there are. It's not just the abstract, basically.
Right.
And also the possibility that you get drivers that don't obey the rules of the road.
Yes, exactly. It's a very good point, that, I think, because unfortunately it's a reality, you know. Ungeza, you want to say something?
Just since contextualizing your motivation, you say you're from PE, and I'm going to assume that in terms of language, the play is written in English. Yeah. So, and the children are predominantly speaking Xhosa. So, would you adapt it for your audience if need be, in order for them to access the knowledge or the rules of the road in the way that, you know, and also the rules of the road some of them are in English. So it's just.
I definitely would, and there's a couple of plays that I've written as well, which are English, and I have to. When I'm going to the schools, because I generally go around the schools in my neighborhood and stuff. So I do change like the language and everything, and I adapt to, definitely.
Okay, great. Yeah, Motalefe, you have?
We still have questions.
Yes, it's a long question.
Oh, all right.
Hang on to your minute.
With the age group that you're particularly dealing with, and just with kids being so advanced, you know, in society that we're dealing with, do you think, like in your title, do you think that perhaps suggesting or giving, it's not so much a command, rules of the road is I don't know if my question, I don't know how to articulate myself properly. I think it's also seeking towards opinion. Do you think suggesting as opposed to saying this is how it's done would work better, or I'm also going towards like your intention, perhaps?
My intention, it's more of this is how it's supposed to be done, basically suggesting, but I wouldn't want to enforce. It needs to be fun and playful as well, so that they're actually engaging and wanting to do that, instead of dictating and, basically, It's more suggestive, but based, not just authority and trying to enforce something, that's where they switch off immediately. So it's basically a fun and playful way of saying don't.
Okay, thank you, yes?
You can go first, fine.
It's a question. I'm not sure how the rest of the play unfolds, but looking at the extra, were you writing this play looking at the roads in an urban area, or were you just looking at the roads in the rural area as well? I'm interested in that.
I was looking at both, actually.
Oh, so there are rules as well that you apply in rural areas. Dusty roads, gravel roads. Because we tend to ignore those roads. I think
can you just twist that to opinion for me? Twist that, for me, it falls under opinion. Like, I'm just in my mind. It's something that I would consider.
Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying? Like it's something
So
I
maybe,
would
so
consider.
maybe you want to look back at the play
Go back to my drawing board and consider that.
Like what might you add or what might you shift? Nice.
So thank you.
Yeah, good questions really always lead to opinions, yeah?
I have a question for the audience.
Yeah.
Did you guys get the joke at the end?
What joke?
At the end. Did you get it?
No. The snail?
Yeah, because Sid, he was a snail and I'm a squirrel and he's super slow.
But also it's that. So in the script, what Khanyisa has done is given the characters animalistic animal names. So I mean, Sid is Mono is the squirrel and Sid is the snail. But we didn't have time to incorporate that energy in the characters. I mean, and how they move, the physicality of it, that could have been shown through physicality. So, yeah.
And Gogo?
Gogo is snail, granny.
Which also gives you a lot of, if you think about that, you've got a lot of options then in terms of costumes and suggestiveness and yeah. Okay, yeah?
For the director, did you have any problems with getting the cast into the character? Like, did you have any moment you had to push them to work hard and to act, or you didn't feel?
I mean, what happened with this cast is they opened up in terms of they needed to ask them to bring stuff that they had been using in the workshops because we just didn't have time. So ideas came out, and you know you'd have a stimuli of a song, and then the other song was a rap song which they did all by themselves. So the cast actually worked constantly in new ideas. So I really was not. It was a collaborative effort more than me just being a director. And Khanyisa later on joined us on the last day, and she also made suggestions. What really wonderfully improved with this cast was we really struggled to get them to project, but also I think it was the space that they were performing in. So the space was not conducive for projection. For projecting, but it happened. So well done, guys. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any opinions? We haven't really heard a lot of opinion yet. So any opinions that you'd like to share? Yes, Jacqueline.
I'd like to share an opinion about the didactic style. And it's quite a fierce opinion, so I'd like to know if you want to hear it here or in a private forum.
No, it's fine here.
Okay. I felt that it felt very teachery. There were one or two moments when Gogo was pointing her finger, and it wasn't because she was a young, inexperienced actor. It was because the words sounded like a little lecture. And I think that even young children turn off when you start pointing your finger and saying, do this and do that. And I think that you need to take a deep breath and go to the drawing board and really try and think of ways of getting away from talking at your audience, but try and find more maybe playful ways. Maybe you've got children coming up and being cars, or maybe you've got I'm not really sure where yet. Maybe it's that idea of that car driving, going into physical theatre and comic book style, maybe. But I would prefer them to be having an experience than being had a finger wagged at them, and it felt a little bit to me like a wagging finger piece.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah.
This is an opinion. I just wanted to say something. I wanted to thank the director and the director, because I think like if they do show this to smaller children, it will spread a lot. Then if you look again, then everyone knows.
That's wonderful. So you feel like it's an important message that needs to be out there.
Just branching from Zian's point of view, what has happened with me working with Acetage is mostly the people that direct plays for children, they test them constantly. So for their audiences, and you start to understand your audience and what they need and what works for them. And so maybe if you work with the director and get an audience, a target audience, and once you start implementing what Jacqueline is probably suggesting, you start to understand what works and doesn't work, where you lose them, and what constantly observing the audience. So yeah.
Yeah, and maybe just to add something onto that whole sort of train of thought that we're exploring here. I think, you know, what Jacqueline was talking about with maybe children are brought into the space even to be things, you know, that's another form of interaction, and it can be incredibly successful if it's well handled. There was a lovely production that I saw from Zambia at the Haifa Festival a little while back, where it was storytelling, but they allowed the children to become elements of the story. So the children became the cattle who were all being herded up, and then the story was sort of happening around them, you know, and certain children became the lions that were waiting in the cave, and, you know, and because that was so beautifully integrated and it was so easy for the children to engage, and they were very directed as to what they had to do, they felt completely part of it, while at the same time feeling in no way sort of pressured or on show, or, you know, it was really beautiful. And it just struck me that you have an opportunity of almost like those little what's it called? Bumper car things. You know bumper cars and how bumper cars move. I mean, maybe there's something there that could be played with children actually creating traffic patterns or something, you know, as a way of exploring what the road means and how we might want to cross it. And maybe that could become an extension activity that happens after the play as well, because the other thing is that you can have an experience which then moves into some sort of a workshop or some sort of an interaction, which can also be really powerful and exciting for the children to engage with. Yes?
Hi, so this is totally might be at the risk of repeating something. I didn't see the play, but I just wanted to add into the opinion as an idea. It might have occurred in your play or not, but at least it will make me sleep at night if I say it now. There's a growing thing now that is called Abantwana Basepavement, meaning that the children of the pavement, where the informal settlement is so close to the road that the kids, actually, their only playing ground is the pavement, and then there's a car. But also there's a sense of, after they've washed with their buckets, they use the drains, the road drains. So in a way, the house and the road is one. And I would really love, I mean, any one of you, if you are thinking of, again, expanding or adding an opinion in terms of the road safety, hence the question becomes important. What specific target audience and what area? Because that allows you to dig even further and really target those audiences even further. Just look at that, it's really a growing danger that every day kids die on those roads. And most of them, their parents are not there. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. Any final opinions on this one? Yes. Ntombi Nkosi.
Yes. I have a suggestion. In terms of the music aspect of it, I've seen that with kids, repetition, constantly repeating the same songs, they get stuck in their head. When they leave, they're busy singing along with the song. So if you're going to have music or rap in it, if you can keep it repetitive and constant, maybe in one scene and then again in another scene, but just to have it ringing in their heads constantly so they remember. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so fantastic. Where are we with time?
It's almost tea time. I need to do a bit of bossing around again.
Okay, well, let's give them a round of applause.